بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue off. We were just going to begin chapter 2, if you guys recall. And I told you guys last dars, I believe, when we concluded, what is chapter 2 called? Anybody remember? Anybody paying attention?
What was chapter 2 called?
Yeah, the one that we're about to start. We never started it yet.
You said we're starting chapter 3.
No, so we're starting chapter 2.
Chapter 2?
Yes, sir.
Hassan was praying, still coming.
Anybody recall? Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Anybody recall?
Oh yeah, give me 1 second. I'm gonna find it.
1 second is up, ya akhi. Chapter 2 is called...
It's chapter 2?
Yes. Tamayuz al-wasa'il. We talked about wasa'il before, or no? We didn't talk about the wasa'il yet.
I have like chapter 2 a while ago written in my notes. And last time I had
it's under the... You might have it like that because they divided up each heading. Like one heading has various chapters underneath. A second heading has various chapters underneath. So technically I don't know. You guys understand what I mean? The way that I divided it up, whatever. It's not so incumbent that you have to put chapter 2 for this. If you have a chapter 3, whatever, as long as you're covering all the information, then it's not a big deal, right? But chapter 2, or whatever chapter you have it titled as, it is Tamayuz al-Wasa'il. And this means we're going to learn about the distinct tamayuz, like the distinction or the distinct means and paths to achieving in an Islamic state or Dawlat al-Qur'an. Okay? So we're not simply going to be speaking about each individual means, like we can do this or we can do this or we can do this. No. But rather we're going to understand the means in depth and the purpose served by the said means. Okay? So, a heading here, مفهوم وأغراض الوسائل في دولة القرآن. The understanding and the purposes of the means in دولة القرآن. To begin with, people that don't believe in the ghaib or in the akhirah or Yawm al-Akhir, okay, they're divided up into 3 categories according to the mu'allaf here, حفظه الله. And this is when it comes to dealing with the reality of death, which is the greatest reality. Every insan ala wajh al-ard believes that he's going to die, صح? Is there any insan that believes he's not going to die? Everyone knows they're going to die. Okay? And we know that Adam alayhi salam, the first human being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, one of the reasons he exited Jannah was as a result of him attempting to
eat from the tree. Or
live eternally. One of the reasons he exited the Jannah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cast him out of the Jannah, was because he ate from the tree. But as a result of him trying to escape from death, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Taha, verse number 120, فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانِ قَالَ يَا آدَمَ هل أدلك على شجرة الخلد وملك لا يبلى. Then Shaitan whispered to him and said, O Adam, shall I direct you to the tree of eternity and possession that will never deteriorate? So Adam alayhi salam, wanting to remain in this bliss for eternity, he ate from the tree. فأكلا منها, this is the next verse, فأكلا منها فبدت لهما سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة وعصى آدم ربه فغوى. And they, Adam and his wife, ate of it, the tree, and their private parts became apparent to them. And they began to fasten over themselves from the leaves of Jannah. And Adam disobeyed his Lord, and he erred. Okay? Before proceeding on, just a little side note, subhanAllah, you'll see that Adam alayhi salam, when him and his wife, they ate from the tree, as a adhab or uquba, a punishment, what happened to them is their private parts became exposed. So take a note here, because now, subhanallah, the mafahim or the the way people measure uqubat and punishments and humiliation versus pleasure and like honor has completely changed. Nowadays, the more naked somebody is, or like women in specific, then the more like beautiful or honorable they are. But subhanAllah, for the first human beings, that was a source or a type of punishment for them, that they became nude. That's from the haya. Like any insan in their normal fitrah like to cover up. Any insan in their normal fitrah like to cover up. Even kafara, even a kafara, if they're in their normal fitrah, they like to cover up. But subhanAllah, as society progresses, they also deteriorate. One thing that's interesting, I don't know, for a personal experiment, if any of you has access to view at their high school, you know how they do a yearbook every year? They take a picture of every student and they post it. And some of the high schools, they have all the yearbook pictures. It's like the graduating class. Not every student in the school. The graduating class of 2024, مثلا, they take a picture of all of them. They post it on the wall like a big plaque or something. If you go look, actually that's a bad way because they only have a portrait image. But if you can look at images of people from, like, for example, the early 2000s, about 20 years ago, or even the 90s, okay, or even the 80s, you'll see how much of a difference, even amongst kafara, how much of a difference there is in the way that they dress. Now, everyone's like, women are nude, men are dressed up like women and all this kind of stuff. If you look back, even kafara back in those days, they used to even wear like modest clothing, and baggy clothing. And if we talked about it before, if you look back, they have some archives where they record. They have clips of different cities from like the early 1900s and stuff. Even you see people used to wear, like, the women would be wearing full dresses and like very, very modestly covering themselves, all covered up. No one would be you can't see nothing. So imagine to those people, which is not even a long time ago, about 100 years ago, okay, that was like honorable, that was dignity, and that was respectable. Nowadays, so imagine in that time, if someone were to be naked, then that's complete, like, utter, it's like haqir, it's very low, you know what I mean? But subhanAllah, how things have flipped. Anyways, just a side note, moving forward. So, the three categories of people that are kuffar, they don't believe in the akhirah, they don't believe in the yawm al-akhirah, they don't believe in the ghaib, they don't believe in the day of judgment. Okay, how do they deal with death? The Shaykh, he divides them up into, and this is taken obviously not just from himself, but other scholars as well. This is divided up into three categories. Al-kafara, they don't believe in Yawm al-Akhir. How do they deal with death? Group number one, and perhaps it's like the largest group, these people realize there's no escaping death, like everyone else. Therefore, they strive to indulge and enjoy as much worldly pleasure as possible before they meet death. And this is aghlab al-kafara, this is the way that they are. They don't believe in Yawm al-Akhir, or maybe in theory they heard about it and whatnot, but they don't really have like a real belief in that. So their whole goal in life is to just atmatta as much as possible, to eat and drink and money and women and business and any type of pleasure they can, just indulge as much as possible, because they want to experience all the pleasures of this world before their life is done. Okay. Number two, as a second group, is that after enjoying all the worldly pleasures of this life and meeting death, the reality is that there's nothing to show for that person's existence. If imagine somebody, they lived in the tamatta'u and every kind of mut'a they can in this dunya. After they died, what did they leave behind? Nothing. So the second group of people, they wanted to go a little bit, they had a little bit different way of looking at things. So they tried to resist the reality of death while disbelieving in the akhirah. How so? They strive to make their name memorable after they have passed away. Okay? So they tried to make their name eternal after their death. Like they're a known figure. They did something. They went down in history. You know what I mean? And that's why you have people that strive to invent, to innovate, to achieve, to have an impact on humanity or mankind, so that their name will never be forgotten. Okay? And that's like an example of which are like philosophers, thinkers, Nobel Peace Prize winners, يعني, Newton's law, for example, or Albert Einstein, and all these kind of people. So these people, they exhaust themselves in such matters to achieve their false, everlasting existence after death. Okay? Then number 3 is another group that understood that even the previous group, okay, they had a false understanding and realized that there's no true personal benefit of your name being remembered. Yani what's gonna, okay, you did something good, people know you, they're gonna remember you, your name is in textbooks, but after your death, okay, what did that really benefit you? That's not gonna benefit you, right? So this third group of people, they knew that this was kind of a false understanding. So what's their outcome? They are the type of people that come to the reality or the understanding that the only thing for them to do in this life is to commit suicide. They're gonna يتمتعوا في الدنيا, it's gonna come to an end. Okay, after what's gonna happen? Their name's gonna be remembered. Okay, well that didn't benefit them. So why should they even continue on in this dunya? Might as well just end their life now, because life is filled with suffering and trials and ta'ab and pain and whatnot. So khalas, just end it off on their own terms, how they want. Okay?
Nihilism.
Naam?
Nihilism.
Nihilism is what it's called. طيب. The third group of people are nihilists. Alright. And this is why you have, subhanAllah, even like a very high suicide rate in Kafir countries, okay? Despite Western countries having the greatest forms of wealth and entertainment. Okay, how come, subhanAllah, in very poor countries you have a low suicide rate, when you would think that somebody who's suffering per se and going through hardships and calamities, they would kind of have more of understood reason to kind of end their life, end their suffering. But then you have people that are millionaires and billionaires and they have every type of pleasure you can want, but you find them committing suicide. Okay, this is very, you guys have all heard of this. They have every form of mata'. They have entertainment, as much as entertainment as they want. But they're never fulfilled by it. They realize that this is not doing anything for them. Okay, so, and what's that a result of, brothers? This is also a side note here. What's that a result of? They have all the mata' of this dunya, but it's not fulfilling anything for them. Lack of purpose. Because, for example, without a doubt, all of you guys know that having financial freedom is a ni'mah. Okay, it allows you to do more things with your time. It gives you the flexibility to explore more options in your life, so on and so forth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created your nafs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created your jism min al-ard, right? How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make Adam alayhi salam? How did He make Adam alayhi salam? From dirt, right? So in order to nourish that dirt, you need to get it, you need to nourish it from what it's created from. Okay? So it's the source of its creation is the source of its nourishment. So you have to eat from the earth, you have to drink from the water of the earth, and so on and so forth, right? طيب. How about the ruh? وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. So the ruh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, it's from أمر ربك, it's from the command of Allah. So in order to nourish the ruh, which the ruh is the person's like inner self, okay? In order to nourish that ruh, the only way it can be nourished is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's من أمر ربك, the only thing that can nourish it is أمر ربك, that's it. So people that don't have that nourishment for their ruh, it doesn't matter how much mata' they have for their jasad. Because in the end of the day, pleasing the body only, it only does so much. When they sit down with themselves at the end of the day, if their ruh is not being nourished, if their actual nafs isn't being nourished, they have no reason for living, then subhanallah, they're always going to feel some emptiness within themselves. Subhanallah, Allah yafi anna. That's why you'll find the most poor Muslim, but they have so much contentment. Because, and this is one of the ni'am of iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places in your heart the hilawa of iman. That's like a sweetness to it. Doesn't matter what kind of hardship you're going through. People there spend many years in prison, but they have the biggest smile on their face, subhanallah, due to this, because their ruh is being nourished. Okay? La ilaha illallah. So an overview that I want to quickly do here. A key point of a secular state is that they do not believe in Yawm al-Akhir, as we took before. Secularists don't believe in hereafter, as a result of their disbelief in religion altogether. And this is what, just as a recap, some people might say, okay, people that are secular, they do some claim they believe in Yawm al-Akhir. We're talking about as an actual, like, as a reality, as something that's going to affect you. And maybe they believe in it, it's their beliefs, they separate deen from every other aspect of their life. So it's just something to believe in. But no, they don't actually have a real understanding of Yawm al-Akhir, where they're actually going to meet it one day, so they prepare for that day. Okay? So the majority of the citizens of a secular state, like I said, would fall into group number one. They just want to fulfill all the desires as much as possible. You have a question, Akhi?
No.
Okay. The second group, who strive to preserve the mention of their name, they do so in order to benefit those in group one. Alright? And this is a philosophy of a living an individualistic capitalist society. Okay, your freedoms are limited only in an individualistic liberal society that we live in today. Okay, what's the limit of your freedoms? Anybody know? When do your limits? Your freedoms become limited or restricted? What's the had? When you're infringing upon someone else's freedoms. Okay. So that's why you hear lots of kafara, they say that they think they're going to be on good terms as long as they're not harming someone else. Like they're living their life however they want, as long as they're not harming someone else. And that's the pure liberalist understanding. You can be whatever you want, any type of drugs, any type of relationships, any type of food and drink and whatever you want to practice, go ahead, as long as it's not infringing upon somebody else. The moment it's infringing upon somebody else's freedom, معناها you cross the line. That's what they don't allow, okay? So everyone is living to enjoy the pleasures of life to the highest extent. So if somebody's freedom is pushed to so far till it transgresses the freedom of others, this will prevent the community at large from enjoying and indulging in pleasures as a whole. So sacrificing, now the next heading here, sacrificing the individual for the community. This is another ideology here. When the ideology is to sacrifice the individual for the community. Some nations adopted the ideology of sacrificing the individuals to preserve the community as a whole. And an example of this ism is what? Communism. Okay? They sacrifice, communism, all the citizens are equal, and there's no tamayuz between citizens, doesn't matter. They're just all working to serve the greater good. They're all working to serve the whole. However, these types of nations didn't really last long. And you think of any communist state, majority of them crumbled. There's only a couple that exist today, and that's because it's implemented by brutal force. But for the most part, they didn't exist for long.
And also, in Islam, isn't the communal interests a higher priority than just the individual?
It is, but not in the same regard that we're talking about as a communist state is. Communist state, the individuals are disposable. They're disposable for the sin. Like in Islam, the blood of one Muslim is more sacred than the Kaaba. So we don't share the same understanding. Okay, so the issue with this ideology, like this sacrificing the individual, making them disposable for the whole, was that the preservation of the society or the community is something that's not guaranteed. So why should I subject myself, to be used and disposed of for something that's not even guaranteed? Okay, why should I be prevented, or why should the individual be prevented from indulging in their pleasures and freedoms and enjoying life to the most extent for something that's not even certain to come? The state is saying, if you do this, we're working towards this, but that's not even certain. It's not even guaranteed. In many cases, like we said, it crumbled. They never even achieved. Okay? And this is a matter that, if you take any human, the majority of human beings, this is a matter that they're going to want to reject. Say, sacrifice yourself for others, sacrifice yourself for the whole. Majority of human nature, you don't like to sacrifice time, money, let alone your own nafs, right? So as a result, you have in many communist states, lots of rebellion, lots of revolting against government. Like you've seen, for example, in Cuba, you've seen in the USSR, the Soviet Union, and so on. Okay. So anyways, Dawlat al-Qur'an. Okay, the key element of this nation, Dawlat al-Qur'an, is that is that it believes in al-ghayb. It believes in Yawm al-Akhir. Okay? So I want you guys to try to, when we're moving forward, everything, it all goes hand in hand. Okay? We're understanding Dawlat al-Quran, how it exactly operates, and what makes it what it is. One of the key elements of Dawlat al-Quran is that it believes in the ghayb. It believes in the akhirah. Okay? Remember that very, very well. This drives the previously covered point that this world is simply used to transport the human being, the creation, to the afterlife, to a successful abode, which is Al-Jannah. Belief in the unseen also affects the use of means adopted by the Quranic State, which is very important as well, which ultimately creates a big distinction of means between it, the Quranic State, and a secular state. So, next heading, the measurements of a secular state's use of means. How does a secular state decide what type of means it will employ to achieve its goals? Okay, a secular state chooses means to achieve its goals strictly based off of the success rate of said means. Okay, like any Western Dawla that you see today. Whether or not the desired goal is achieved effectively by the means chosen. Okay. So whatever means effectively allows the secular state citizens to indulge in pleasure to the fullest extent, it is a possible means. So, like we said, the secular state, what they're trying to establish for their citizens is to indulge to the fullest extent in this dunya. Okay? That's what the goal of a secular state is they want the citizens to indulge in their whims and desires and pleasures to the fullest extent. So whatever means successfully or effectively allows them to do that, then it can be considered a possible means, regardless of whether this conflicts with the means conflicts with faith or morals or etiquette or behavior or anything. Okay, that's why you might find stuff in secular states that was once viewed as filthy or backwards or a marad or a disorder. Okay, and then it becomes, or it was viewed as, it was even outlawed. Then it became something legal or something permissible. Then something, and just another option. Okay, such as alcohol. You guys know the what's it called? The prohibition. In the 1930s, I believe it was, when they wanted to ban alcohol, they made it illegal. Okay, but now alcohol is nahadi. Like it's a norm. Everyone drinks alcohol, just like it's a societal norm. You know what I mean? So that shows that at one point, even kafara, they viewed it to be something that's immoral. But that's not the case. Also, you have LGBTQ. Okay, at one point, initially they described it as a marad. Then they described it as a marad, a disorder. Then as something that's like something's wrong with the person. They described it after that as some person that has like a khalal in their behavior. You know, they have some type of fault in their behavior, like it's something that's immoral. Then they described it as another, just a sexual choice or orientation. And then they described it as it's just another option. Then they described it as it's completely normal and adi. And then half the society identify as LGBTQ and hand and blue hair, and man is a woman and a woman is a man, and subhanallah al-azim. You see very, very strange stuff. You even see people identifying, and how stupid it sounds, but it exists, and you guys probably seen it. People identifying as babies. A grown man, he wants to identify as a 6-year-old girl. And then be like baby clothes and andu soother, and that's what he's identifying as. Or they want to identify as like we said, the opposite gender, or even they want to identify as animals. Okay? Like one of the brothers is not here with us today, but his sister, she works in HR for a very big company here in the city, and they had a girl, she's coming to apply for a position in the company, and she's made a request though that for her position she wants to make sure, because she identifies as a cat, a grown woman, she identifies as a cat, so she wants to have a litter box placed in the hammam. Imagine. I wonder if she would actually use it or not. A'udhu billah. But imagine, look what kind of dalal and misguidance and filth this is. Okay. Then the sister, Allah yajzih al-khair, she's like, unfortunately we only hire humans. We don't hire animals. Okay, subhanallah. She used it against you. Anyway, so if a means chosen restricts, if a secular state chooses a means and that restricts the pleasures of society, then it is deemed to be no good, because it contradicts their main goal that they're trying to achieve. So if practicing religion equals more pleasure than religion, okay, then, if practicing religion equals more pleasure for the human being, then it will be regarded as something good, regardless of the belief, which is the case of secular states. So someone practicing religion, it leads to something good. It makes a person feel good on the inside. They develop a set of morals. They develop a certain quality of life and whatever. Okay, then it's deemed to be something good. And then there's an ideology that's called pragmatism. Has anybody ever heard of pragmatism before? Philosopher Abu Isa. Okay, there's a man called Thomas More. He's one of the founders of this pragmatism. And pragmatism is an ideology. It is an approach that assesses the truth of meaning of theories or beliefs in terms of the success of their practical application. In other words, if something renders a good or desired outcome, it is good. If something renders a bad or undesired outcome, it is bad. So if deen makes the human being a good shakhs, a good member of society, he's happy, he's positive, and whatever, deen is good. Doesn't matter what deen you're on. But if deen makes the person, they're miserable and they're evil, they're infringing on others' freedoms, then deen is bad. Okay? So, if kufr is, according to them, if kufr is more desirable, if kufr has a better effect on the human being to their understanding, then kufr can be better than deen, wal'ayadhu billah, according to their understanding. Okay? Likewise, if marriage to them equals more satisfaction, more pleasure, then it's good. If zina equals more satisfaction or pleasure, then zina is better than marriage. Okay? According to that, wal'ayadhu billah. طيب. You guys ever hear of an individual named Machiavelli? Is not a rapper, by the way. Naam. Niccolo Machiavelli is an Italian philosopher, and he authored a book. It's called Al-Amir in Arabic. It's called in English, I believe, The Prince. Okay? And the basis of the theory of Machiavelli is Al-Ghaya tubarrir al-wasila, or the ends justifies the means. You guys all heard this before, okay? This is Machiavelli's great theory, that the ends justifies the means. Ma'naha, it doesn't matter what kind of means you take. If the ends is good, then you got the green light. Okay? If the end result is good, from a worldly view, from a liberal view, from a secular view, then it doesn't matter how it's achieved, yani. If it's achieved through killing, corruption, rape, destroying, dropping atomic bombs, bahadi. As long as the end result is good, okay? According to what they desire. Is everybody following along up until now? We're good? Quick question, actually, I'll come back to it at the end if we finish today's dars, inshallah. Okay? The next heading is means and measures in the Quranic State. In Islam, we view means and measures in a different way, of course. We are required to perform specific means and measures. As for the results, they're purely and solely created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who commanded the means, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who creates the results. Therefore, the Muslim is only responsible for committing to performing the means. Okay? Had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to attain the results, this would be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanding the creation with something they're incapable of. Okay? It's something that's impossible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. So we don't have that. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us to make this end result. The commandment is for us to achieve this end result. That's not what we're commanded for. But rather, we're commanded with striving towards that result. Is that clear? Like Jannah. Okay, كلام الشاطبي رحمه الله. الذي للمكلف تعاطي الأسباب وأما المسببات يعني النتائج فمن فعل الله وحكمه لا كسب فيه للمكلف. So he says, rahimahullah, that for the mukallaf, for the person who's accountable, is to take the means, and the one who creates the means, or the one who creates the nata'ij, afun, like the results, that's min fi'al Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's from the creation or the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His wisdom. And there's nothing in that up to the insan. واستقرار هذا المعنى في الشريعة مقطوع به فإذا لا يتعلق التكليف وخطابه إلا بما اكتسب فخرجت المسببات عن خطاب التكليف لأنها ليست بمقدورهم ولو تعلق بها لكان تكليفا بما لا يطاق وهو غير واقع كما تبين في الأصول. Which means, this ma'na, he says, Shatibi, that this underlining understanding is found throughout the Sharia, yani with certainty. Because there is no So the person in the Sharia, we have many different places in the Sharia, many different examples of it, that the khitab for the mukallaf is not, yani the taklif is not to bring the end result. And we're going to find examples of that because it's not within their means. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't command us to attain a certain result because it's not within our means, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us to strive towards a certain result. Okay, and he said, as this says, I'm just paraphrasing, as this has been made clear in the usul. So, if Dawlat al-Qur'an was established by performing and fulfilling the means the Muslim were commanded with, but they never achieved the results they were hoping for, then they are not held accountable for it. Okay? I'll repeat that once again. If Dawlat al-Qur'an was established, if this Dawla of al-Islam, of al-Qur'an, was established by performing, or it was strived to be established by performing and fulfilling the means the Muslims were commanded with, okay? But the Muslims never achieved the results they were hoping for, then they are not held accountable for it. As I understood? This becomes clear and easier to understand, brothers, when we're looking at matters of the unseen. Okay? Like you said, are we commanded to enter Jannah?
To attain.
We're commanded to strive to enter Jannah. Okay? Are we commanded to dodge? Are we commanded are we commanded to not enter the hellfire? Can you not enter the hellfire? You say, I'm not going to enter, like Yawm al-Qiyamah, مثلا نسأل الله العافية والسلامة, somebody can just say, no, I'm not going in there, I'll take a next stop. No, but you're commanded to avoid entering the hellfire. Okay? So you guys are understanding what we mean here, is that the Muslim is commanded with the asbab, not with natija. The Muslim is commanded, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Muslim to be victorious and conquer the whole dunya? No, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Muslim to jihad fi sabilillah, to strive to do what he can. Okay? Is the Muslim commanded to have the army that's the strongest, the greatest army in the world? Is to have all these airplanes and all this stuff? No, the Muslims commanded to وَأَعَدُّوا لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُ مِنْ قُوَّةٍ. Okay, you prepare yourself as much as you can from force and with strength. Okay, so in Dawlat al-Qur'an, it is set up to make matters of ibadah easy. So in the hereafter, the people will be saved from the punishment of the hellfire. Okay, and in the akhirah we will see the fruits of these matters. So how about regarding tangible worldly matters? Many Muslims, unfortunately, have a misguidance and a corrupt understanding when it comes to this. Okay, and we're going to come see how. An example, okay, let's say Dawlat al-Quran, an Islamic state, in the Islamic State, the state is commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take correct shari'i means to make the dawlah's economy flourish. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Muslimin to take correct shari'i means to make this Islamic State, the economy of it, flourish. So let's say the country has lots of grape reserves. Okay? And manufacturing wine with the grapes will bring in $1 billion annual income. But if you manufacture vinegar with the grapes, it's going to bring in $1 million annual income. Which product should we manufacture?
From what point of what line?
In Islam.
The
Vinegar.
Yeah.
Vinegar. Okay? Even if we're going to lose out on however much hundreds of millions of dollars by doing so, like 90% of the economy is going to be lost by doing so, that doesn't matter to the Muslim. Why? Because you're not accountable or responsible for losing out on 90% of the money that could be generated. What you're accountable for as a Muslim is to take the correct shari'i means to flourish the economy. Not to flourish the economy. Is that under mafhum? Okay, so according to a secular state, this would be an economical failure. Yani somebody, they're doing this, they're going to be like, oh, this person might be a bil economy. You know? In Dawlat al-Qur'an, you're not commanded to increase the economy of the country, but rather to strive in increasing the economy of the country. By halal shari'i means. Therefore, what you are held accountable for in Islam is whether or not you took the halal shari'i means or not. So, it will be divided into two. Whether you actually took the means or you were negligent. And number two, if the means are sharia compliant or not. So did the Muslims actually take the correct means? Or were they just sitting back and they were negligent in taking means and they were lazy and they were neglectful? And number two, were the means that they took actually shari'i or not? Okay? Another example, in war. Okay? You have a question? No? In war. In the secular state, you're commanded to be victorious. In war, they have to be victorious over the opponent. Okay? Regardless of what types of warfare you use or what type of humane means are used or whatnot, it's not humane or humane, they don't care. Okay? That's why we see examples today. Snipers killing kids, and shooting kids in the head, people blowing up hospitals and blowing up babies and all this kind of stuff. Allah yantaqim minhum. Okay, they don't care, because to them, all they should be doing, what's important to them, what's their goal, is to be victorious. They don't care what means. They don't care about, even if they claim that they're abana Allah wa ahibba'u, you know, they claim that Yahud, that they're the most beloved to Allah, that they claim that they're actually like the servants of Allah. That's all nonsense. They're really secular. Okay, I'm talking about this Dawlat al-Yahud that exists today. Okay, so whether you use an atomic bomb or not, it doesn't matter. If you were defeated, according to a secularist mind state, if you were defeated, you never took the right means. If you failed, you never took the right means. That's how a secularist thinks. On the other hand, in an Islamic state, you're commanded to strive in taking the correct shari'i means to be victorious and aren't commanded to be victorious. A very big difference, okay? In Islam, you're commanded to take the correct shari'i means to be victorious, and you are not commanded to be victorious. So much so, if the Muslims became victorious by taking a haram means, they are blamed. Okay, imagine Muslimin, they're in qital. Okay, and they became victorious, but guess what? They took a haram means. They khalafu amr al-Nabi alayhi salam. Then they're not praised, they're blamed for that. Even though they came out victorious, they're blameworthy and they're sinful. Okay? And they are not praised for it. And an example of that is found amongst the Sahaba in what's called Sariyat al-Nakhla. It was a battle when they fought the Sahaba in al-Ashhur al-Huram, in the sacred months, where it's prohibited to fight. Okay? They were victorious, and they took the ghanaim, the spoils of war. And then when they came back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what Rasulullah do? What happened? Those people were refuted and they were blamed, even though they were victorious. Okay? So that shows you the difference between a Muslim mentality, an Islamic mentality, and a secular mentality. And just a side note as well, subhanAllah, on a smaller scale, one time I had a brother, he's talking and he was making naqad on one of the masajid, how they're operating. And it's like, this masjid is not successful. It's not successful. Why? SubhanAllah, it's the problem that we suffer from today is the Muslims, lots of the Muslim minds have become secularized. Like, this masjid is not successful. Why? Because they're not successful because they're not flourishing as a business. They're not increasing their money, their assets, their whatever, their services, okay? To that brother, Allah yahdina wa iyah, it doesn't matter, what's success to him is the dollar signs at the end of the year. How much money, how much property, how much buildings, how much land, that's what's successful. That's what defines success. When in reality, as a Muslim, as an Islamic mind state, what really defines success, jihad. What really defines success in an Islamic mind state is what? Is whether they took the correct shari'i means. Was that masjid operating, for example, in a tariqah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with? They're doing stuff that is halal, or they're bending sharia to make money, and they're taking advantage of the Muslims' wealth, and they're lying, and they're distorting, and they're cheating, and so on and so forth. Okay, so subhanallah, look at the measurement. Look at the measurements of how people of Muslim minds have become secularized. Okay, so even in the establishment of Dawlat al-Qur'an, you are commanded to take the correct shari'i means to establish it, and you aren't commanded to establish it once again. Okay, so even if the Muslims established the Dawla al-Islamiyya with an incorrect means, they are blameworthy. And what is humiliation is when Muslim groups resort to taking un-Islamic means to establish the Islamic State, even though it isn't required of them. Okay? For example, we have some Muslims that they wanted to go into, for example, Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Okay? And by the way, this is not making shamata fi any jama'ah that exists today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant victory to all the Muslimin that are fighting fi sabilillah. But for example, like as a fikra, على العموم, look in Masr for example, okay? Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Subhanallah, they thought that they have to go into, or Ikhwan in general, they have to go into politics, into democracy in order to establish the hukum. But they're not even commanded to establish the hukum. They're commanded to take the proper shari'i means to establish the hukum. You see where the khalal is? That's what causes all these jama'at and all these groups to come out, to have misguidance in them. They're misunderstanding this thawabit of the deen, okay? And subhanallah, what the Shaykh says is by the grace and the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that these jama'at that take the incorrect means, they're never successful. To prove or to show that, so it does not become a fitna for the people. Like, oh look, when you actually tadkhul bil democracy with parliament, ma'naha you're going to succeed. No. SubhanAllah, you find, and then when people take the correct halal shari'i means, then they are, inshaAllah, they will become successful by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you have an example of that as the Taliban in Afghanistan. They jahadu for 20 years. How much lives they sacrificed, how much wealth they lost, how much people were killed, how much people in their society was destroyed in the economy and whatnot. But in the end, what happened? They were victorious, subhanAllah. Okay? And then you look at the jama'at of Ikhwan al-Muslimin in Masr in specific have been around since the fall of the Khilafah. Okay? Which was 100 years ago. Up until today, Mu'assas Jama'at al-Ikhwan, rahimahullah, is Hassan al-Banna, rahmatullah alayh. Okay? But since Hassan al-Banna to today, even though there is so much jama'at that happened in Masr, one after another, so much ulama, like Masr in specific was such a hub for all these jama'at that came out to revive the Khilafah. Masr in specific. Lots of jama'at came out of Masr, okay? But subhanAllah, till today, even though at one point their Ra'is, okay, was Ikhwan Muslimin, they never succeeded, subhanAllah. Because why? Because they never took the proper halal shari'i means, okay? Next heading. Example in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Rasulullah was weak and he was looking for aid and support, and some of the Arab tribes offered him to support him, as you guys know in the seerah, okay? in return for being leaders after him. You know, some group of the Arabs, they said, yes, we'll support you, we'll give you bay'ah. But in exchange, we want after you, Ya Rasulullah, or after you, O Muhammad, والسلام, we want to be the leaders. They want to have the hukm and ba'd al-Nabi, والسلام, okay? And despite the weak state he was in, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he refused. Why? Because that is not what we are commanded with in Islam. It's just to establish the Dawla Islamiyya. But rather, he was commanded with, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Muslims after him, to take the correct shari'i means to establishing it. Okay? So we have another, in Bay'at al-Aqaba al-Thaniya, some of the Ansar, they told Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon giving him bay'ah, okay, they told him, Ya Rasulullah, okay, you know, Rasulullah, he was, they drove him out of Mecca, after all the persecution and whatnot. Some of the Ansar, the Sahaba from Al-Madinah, they say, Ya Rasulullah, give us permission. We're going to go into this valley, i.e. Mecca. We're going to kill them in one night. We're going to destroy Ahl Mecca. Okay? Instead of going to Hijrah to Medina and all these ghazawat and wars and 10 years of qital non-stop, Ya Rasulullah, give us permission. We're just going to go into the valley. We're going to niqdi ala Ahl Mecca. Khalas. In one night, Mecca will become Dar al-Islam. What did the Rasulullah respond with saying, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Anybody know? Sam lam u'mar biqital ba'd. Or kama qala sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, I haven't been commanded to fight yet. Could the Sahaba have done that, the Ansar? Sure. But that wasn't what he's commanded with to establish. He said, I was not commanded with qital yet. He was not given permission by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fight, meaning that this means hasn't been made halal for him. So no, he refused. Okay? He didn't say we're not capable, we're not strong enough, we don't have the udda to do it. No. He said, Allah ma amarna bihada, ma'na al-kalam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't permitted us to do such a thing. So in conclusion, we can say, not definitively, or not entirely, but for the most part, the sabab, or the means in Dawlat al-Qur'an, resembles the result of the secular state in terms of what's expected of the people. Okay? And the secular state, they expect the people to achieve. They expect a result. In Dawlat al-Qur'an, we expect, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us with, striving with the correct means, not the end result. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions regarding the subject matter here? Any questions? نعم فضيلة الشيخ. ما شاء الله. What does that have to do with Dawlat al-Qur'an? Tamam. Okay. With this, inshallah, we'll conclude. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين. And actually,